there's a disclosure that your bank is not required to make when you rent a safe deposit box. It is not buried in fine print. It is not disclosed at all. Most bank employees do not mention it because most bank employees do not know it matters. The content of your safe deposit box is not insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. The FDIC, the agency that protects your checking account, your savings account, and your certificates of deposit up to $250,000 per depositor per institution, has no jurisdiction whatsoever over the physical contents of a box bolted into a vault inside the same building. If the bank burns down, if a flood destroys the building, if a thief cuts through the vault, if the bank goes bankrupt and sells the building and its contents to a liquidator who drills the boxes open, your gold coins, your original documents, your jewelry, your cash, and your irreplaceable heirlooms are not federally protected. You may have a claim against the bank under basic contract law. You may recover something. You may recover nothing. But the FDIC guarantee that makes your bank account one of the safest places to hold money in America does not follow you into that vault room. And that is the first of 3 things you were never told. The second involves the bank's own liability agreement, which, in most institutions, is buried in the rental contract you signed without reading, limiting the bank's responsibility for the contents of the box to a nominal amount, in some cases as low as $500, regardless of the actual value of what you stored. And the third involves a legal doctrine that has been used by law enforcement agencies across America to seize the contents of safe deposit boxes from people who have been charged with no crime, convicted of no offense, and in many cases, never even contacted before their property was taken. The doctrine is called civil asset forfeiture, and it has reached inside bank vaults in ways that most box renters never imagined possible when they signed the rental agreement. Welcome to the Invisible Ledger. If these stories account to you, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we trace the money they told you not to follow. The safe deposit box has been a fixture of American banking since the mid-19th century. The first modern safe deposit vault is generally credited to the Safe Deposit Company of New York, established in 1865, which offered private vaults for the storage of securities, jewelry, and valuables to the city's wealthy residents. By the late 19th century, major banks across the country had incorporated safe deposit facilities into their branches. The boxes were marketed as the ultimate security, a combination of the bank's physical security, its professional management, and the implied protection of an institution regulated by the federal government. For over 100 years, Americans placed their most irreplaceable possessions into these boxes with confidence. The regulatory reality is more complicated. The FDIC was established by the Banking Act of 1933 and provides deposit insurance coverage for deposits held at FDIC member institutions. The definition of a deposit under the Federal Deposit Insurance Act, codified at 12 U.S.C. Section 1813, covers accounts where the bank holds funds as a debtor to the depositor. A safe deposit box rental is not a deposit in this sense. The bank does not hold your property. You hold your property inside a rented space on the bank's premises. The bank is a lessor, not a custodian. The FDIC's own materials explicitly state on their website that the FDIC does not insure the contents of safe deposit boxes. This disclosure is accurate and legally correct, but it is also disclosure that millions of Americans have never received in a form they noticed or understood. The bank's own liability for the contents of your box is governed by the rental agreement you signed, not by any federal protection. The standard safe deposit box rental agreement at most major banks includes language substantially similar to the following. The bank's liability for loss or damage to the contents of the box shall be limited to negligence directly attributable to the bank and shall not exceed a specified dollar amount. That amount varies by institution. At some banks, the liability cap is $500. At others, $1,000. At some larger institutions, the cap may be higher, but it is rarely disclosed prominently and almost never discussed at the point of rental. A box containing $20,000 in gold coins, a $50,000 jewelry collection, or a stock certificate worth 6 figures is covered by a liability cap that would not replace a single piece of the collection. Before I go further, this video is just the surface. Inside the Invisible Ledger vault, you will find the Alternative Storage Comparison Guide, the Insurance Writer Checklist for valuables coverage, the Home Safe Selection Criteria, the Civil Asset Forfeiture Tracking Database by state, and the legal resources for contesting forfeiture of safe deposit box contents. The link is in the description. But stay right here. Now let me address civil asset forfeiture, because this is the third risk that most safe deposit box users have never considered. Civil asset forfeiture is the legal process by which law enforcement agencies can seize property that is suspected of being connected to criminal activity, without necessarily charging the owner of that property with a crime. The doctrine traces back to English admiralty law, which allowed the seizure of ships used in piracy even when the ship's owner could not be prosecuted. In American law, the practice expanded dramatically in the 1980s as part of the war on drugs, with federal laws including 18 U.S.C. Section 981 and state equivalents providing broad forfeiture authority to law enforcement. The connection to safe deposit boxes became national news in March 2021 when the FBI executed search warrants on all approximately 800 boxes at the U.S. Private Vaults facility in Beverly Hills, California. The agency seized the contents of every single box, belonging to approximately 650 customers, as part of an investigation into the company itself. Many box holders had no connection to any alleged criminal activity. They were targeted solely because their property was stored at a facility that was the subject of the investigation. The ACLU and multiple civil liberties organizations filed suit on behalf of affected customers, arguing that the mass seizure violated the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on unreasonable searches and seizures. As of the time of this production, litigation from that case continues. The Beverly Hills case was extreme, but smaller-scale safe deposit box seizures are common. Local law enforcement with a search warrant for a safe deposit box can access it, photograph or remove its contents, and retain property pending forfeiture proceedings. The burden of proof in civil forfeiture in many states is on the property owner to prove the assets are not connected to criminal activity, not on the government to prove they are. This reversal of the normal burden of proof, combined with the cost and complexity of contesting forfeiture, means that many property owners simply do not fight. They lose what was in the box and never pursue recovery. If you have made it this far, you already understand the 3 risks embedded in a safe deposit box that no banker has ever explained. Subscribe and share this video. Now let me give you the practical alternatives and steps. Step 1. If you are storing valuables for insurance purposes, know that the contents of a safe deposit box can be covered by a separate personal property floater rider on your homeowner's or renter's insurance policy. This coverage extends to valuables stored off premises, including in a bank vault. Contact your insurance agent and ask specifically about a scheduled personal property rider or a valuable items endorsement. The cost is typically 1 to 3% of the insured value per year. Step 2. For document storage, consider which documents actually need to be in a physical bank vault. Original deeds and titles can be replaced through public records. Social security cards, passports, and birth certificates are replaceable through government agencies. The documents that are genuinely irreplaceable, original signed wills, trust agreements, and certain contracts should be stored in a certified copy system with originals held by your attorney. Step 3. For physical valuables, a high-quality residential safe installed by a professional can provide security equivalent to many bank vault environments. Modern residential safes with UL residential security container ratings, fire protection ratings, and professional anchor installation offer protection from theft and fire damage. The cost ranges from several hundred to several $1,000s depending on the specification. The advantage is that the contents are in your control and are not subject to third-party access through legal process without a warrant directed specifically at you. Step 4. If you continue to use a safe deposit box, purchase a separate valuable items insurance rider from your homeowner's insurer to cover the contents. Read your bank's rental agreement carefully and note the liability cap. Step 5. Never store cash in a safe deposit box. Cash in a box is not earning any return, is not insured, is not protected from seizure, and in the event of bank failure, may be difficult to access during any regulatory process. Cash belongs in an FDIC insured account earning interest, even if small. Step 6. Keep an updated inventory of everything stored in any safe deposit box, including photographs and appraisals for valuable items. This documentation is essential both for insurance claims and for contesting any forfeiture proceeding. I need to be honest with you. The risks discussed in this video are real, but not equally probable for all consumers. First, the civil forfeiture risk to safe deposit boxes is genuine, but statistically uncommon for consumers with no connection to criminal investigation. The Beverly Hills case was exceptional. Most safe deposit box contents are never seized by law enforcement. Second, the FDIC insurance gap is real, but also consistently disclosed on the FDIC's own website. The problem is not concealment by the government, but the failure of banks to make this disclosure prominent at the point of rental. Third, bank failures are rare and have been rarer since post-financial crisis reforms. The risk of a bank failing and its physical vaults being inaccessible is lower today than at many points in American history. Fourth, home safes have their own risks. A fire-resistant safe that is not properly anchored can be stolen by a determined thief. A very high-value collection may be better protected in a properly managed private vault facility that carries its own liability insurance with higher limits than a commercial bank. And fifth, the loss of access during a bank failure scenario is typically temporary, not permanent. FDIC resolution processes generally allow account holders and box renters eventual access to their property. Your grandparents hid things under floorboards, inside walls, and root cellars, not because they were paranoid, but because they had lived through bank runs, through Depression-era failures, through the experience of watching neighbors lose everything held in an institution that seemed permanent until it was not. Then one generation was taught that the bank was the safest place, that the vault was impenetrable, that the box was protected. They were not entirely wrong. But they were not told the full story. There was not a completely safe place. There was just a best available option that came with terms and limits and exceptions that no one mentioned when you signed on the dotted line. Subscribe and share this video. Every share tells someone something the bank never did. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside will show you how the wealthiest families in America are using a structure that looks like charity to avoid taxes while keeping their money growing and under their own control forever. This